Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I was getting into Halloween mode and seeing all those cute costumes out there, and one I really loved was the mermaid skeleton, and don't ask me why, but I thought they would make some really cute cookies, so I decided to make some. I am just using a store-bought sugar cookie mix for these. Prepare according to your instructions for rolled cookies. Mine called for the mix, melted butter, an egg, and a little extra flour. One year my friend made me this spatula set, and this one's got little macarons on it. Isn't it cute? We're gonna mix this all up in the bowl, and then when it's pretty stiff, we'll move it over to the mat, and then we'll roll it out. You don't want to roll these out too thin, but you don't want them too thick either. Aim for about a 1/4 inch thickness. If you want to get really fancy, there's these little rings you can buy for your roller that'll help guide you, and it basically makes it impossible to go beyond a certain thickness. This mat I'm using is a bit smaller than my dough, and I want to be able to move it to the fridge to chill, so I trimmed off the parts that were hanging off the side. Don't throw those away, you can still use them, just put them on a separate sheet of wax paper or what have you. If they aren't big enough, you can combine them and re-roll into one piece, but just be aware that the more you work the dough, the tougher your cookies are gonna be. Chill in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. Once you have your dough chilled, it should be nice and firm, and you can go ahead and start cutting out your shapes. Here I'm using a jellyfish, a starfish or flower, and a snowman. I didn't have a mermaid cutter, so I thought the upside down snowman kind of looked like a little girl with a big cartoony head, so that's what I'm using. If you don't have a cutter like my starfish or flower or whatever it is, you can use a plain old star for this as well. Arrange your cookie cutters so that you have minimal space in between. Again, you can reuse the dough that's left, but it may be a bit tougher in texture with each batch that gets re-rolled. Carefully transfer your cutout shapes to a baking sheet prepared with parchment paper. Make sure to leave a couple inches of space in between your cookies when you put them on the sheet, just in case you get spreading. That really shouldn't happen if your dough is chilled, but in the event that it's gone to room temperature, you might have some. We are going to bake these at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 9 to 10 minutes. While your first batch is in the oven, you can combine whatever dough you have left and roll that out. Repeat this process until you've used up all of your dough. I recommend using an offset spatula to reduce breakage or cracking. When you get down to the last little bit, you might want to just press that into the mold. You want to make sure that they are baked all the way through, but watch out for the edges of the pieces that have appendages sticking out, like the tips of the star or the jellyfish tentacles, as they will get browner quicker than the rest of the cookie. These are my cookies once they were baked. You can see that some of them have some minor cracking on the top because I let my dough get a little bit too dry, but that's totally okay because the royal icing is going to cover all of those flaws. So next we will jump into how to make the royal icing. Sift the powdered sugar into a bowl, then add your meringue powder, and you can sift that as well if you want to. Next, what I did, because I wasn't sure about how potent the extract I was using would be, was put the amount of water I thought I was going to need into a small container, and then added my extract to the water instead of directly into my dry mix. And that helped me in 2 ways. The first being so that I didn't add so much extract that it was an overpowering taste. And the second is that once the dry mix gets wet, you have a really short amount of time to get it all mixed together and into the piping bag because it wants to start setting up. When I'm ready to add my liquid to my dry mix, I add the first few tablespoons and just mix it by hand with the beater so that I don't get dry mix flying up into the air everywhere, but don't add too much. It's a really fine line between a good working consistency and being a bit too runny. So once it's starting to get stiffer, I plug the beater into the mixer and start slowing down on adding the liquid. Once you have it to the right consistency, Quickly add your food coloring. Usually I say add a little bit at a time, especially with the gel food coloring, using like a toothpick or something. But because I'm going for black, I added quite a bit using a plastic fork. You can see it's still kind of more like dark gray, but I didn't want to keep adding additional color, so I decided this was going to be good enough and hoped it would just get a little bit darker as it sat. Ideally, you want to have your piping bag ready to go before you start mixing your wet into your dry mix. Put the inner plastic piece in the bag and put a piece of plastic wrap on the outside covering the hole. Then screw the top part that holds the tip on onto the inner plastic piece. This will give you the time you need to get your other colors of icing mixed if you're working with something that has multiple colors, or if you don't need to use the icing right away, it'll give you time to set it to the side. Royal icing will keep if you seal it up for quite a while, as long as you keep it airtight. If you keep it for a really long time, you will see that it starts to separate, but if you have it in the bag and the bag is sealed at both ends, you can kind of mix it in the bag to get it back to a good working consistency, even if that happens. FYI, don't use a spatula you care about with black icing. As you can see here, it turned my spatula from white to pink, and that was with me washing it right after I was done. We are going to make another batch of icing, and this time I'm going to leave it white. I'm not going to add any additional flavor to this either because I used maple extract in the black and it was pretty strong. It's also a dark color and I want my icing to be white. If you wanted to and you had a flavoring that was a light color or clear, you could certainly add that in here. Because of the design that I'm going for on this, I am making my white icing a little bit stiffer than I did with the black, which is more for flooding the background layer. We are going to make our outline for our background using the black icing, but not all the way to the edge. Fill in your shape most of the way and then take a toothpick and just do a little swirling action to fill in the gaps and push the border out to the edge where you want it to be. You don't want to pipe right onto the edge because you run the risk of the icing running down the side, which isn't going to give you a clean looking design. It won't take too long for those to dry. Then you're going to come back and add the white part of the design. And yes, I know starfish don't have bones, but I was just trying to do something in the spirit of Halloween to accompany our mermaid. So this is the design I came up with and I kind of like it. And then for the jellyfish, I didn't put bones, but I thought just like an all white jellyfish would be pretty cool and like ghostly. And the nice thing about them is you can kind of do a little bit of a different design on each one. And there you go, my trio of undersea Halloween cookies. I hope you all have a fabulous Halloween and make some treats of your own. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share with anyone you think would like these cookies. As always, I thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!